is the ZC Show,
the podcast that doesn't deserve an intro.
Here's your host, Zach Clark.
It is great to be with you on this Wednesday evening. Thank you. I, of course, am ZC. I got to figure out my entrance. Like, there's no video. I thought about that, but at the same time, like, nah, I don't think so. An intro video, I don't want that. But, like, I'm not really mastering the Collinsworth slide on the YouTube and Twitch entrance. If you're listening on the podcast, great. You won't notice any of that. You can catch the ZC Show live every Wednesday, 7 o'clock, YouTube and Twitch, plus your favorite podcast platform every Thursday morning. We got a lot to get to this evening. We'll talk Red Wings. Can they avoid that March slump? It has been brutal for them the last, not one season, but 2 seasons. They've not been able to survive the month of March. And the Lions have made some moves, not one, but 2 of them. A trade and a cut. The Pistons find themselves in probably the toughest stretch that they'll have this season outside of the playoffs. In fact, maybe the toughest stretch anybody will have outside of the playoffs. We'll talk a little WBC, World Baseball Classic. It's not my favorite, but I do like it because, I mean, it's competitive baseball, so, who's going to complain about that? And, at the end of the show, I want to talk about Chauncey Billups. There was some possible movement in his case today, and I'm still just blown away by the whole thing. And I'm a little confused, but I mean, I'm also a little stupid. So the confusion thing, not that big of a deal, right? Let's talk Red Wings hockey. They are playing at this exact moment right down the street from me. The Golden Knights are in town. That puck dropped at 7 o'clock, so I will not know the outcome during this recording, though if you are listening later, you certainly will. And this is a massive game, massive game. The Wings have a 6-point playoff cushion at the moment. In 2024, in the month of March, they began with a in 2024, they had an 8-point cushion going into the month of March. Did they make the playoffs? No. In 2025, they had a 4-point cushion. Did they make the playoffs? No. So the last 2 Marches for the Detroit Red Wings have been pretty brutal. Not being able to hold their playoff position. Last year I'll let last year go. They replaced their coach. Todd McClellan comes in late. They go on a couple of runs, but they started from too far behind, right? 2 years ago, completely different story. Obviously, you have the Larkin injury, but still, right now for the Detroit Red Wings, no excuses. I mean, what a win. What a win in Nashville on Monday. The Wings had to come back on the road without John Gibson. I mean, Cam Talbot in relief. He played the second and third periods. He stood on his head. DeBrincat, the cat, had an empty netter. I mean, maybe that'll get him going. Can they break the March curse? Can the Red Wings hold on to 6 points? The last 2 seasons, the answer has been no. And you think to yourself, well, Zach, you just said that Gibson was out. He did leave the game after the first period on Monday, upper body injury. I love hockey so much. What's wrong with him? Well, sir, it's anything between the torso and the top of his head. What that means, I'll let you figure it out. Could be anything. It's the most vague answer of all time. There's only 2 injuries in hockey. Just 2. Upper and lower body. Very simple. But it sounds like he's okay. It sounds like the Red Wings will be able to move on with him. Because, I mean, that would be devastating. John Gibson has played at a Vezina level performance. I mean, his performance has been Vezina level. Get the words out, Clark. Speak with your mouth. Wings are at home with a chance to hold on to that playoff position. Got to keep racking up points. They have to play the rest of the year like they're out. because the last couple of years, that's how it ended. They were out. Red Wings and Vegas. Let me know how that one goes.
Detroit.
Wait, not yet. There we go. Let's talk Lions. The other day, this is not new anymore. David Montgomery was traded to the Houston Texans for a 4th and 7th round draft pick and the versatile yet somewhat backup lineman Juice Scruggs. And, there's been so much talk. It's funny. I hosted the Lions podcast this past season. And, one of the big things we were so excited about was, will we see Montgomery and Gibbs at the same time? We want to see them both. Like, it's exciting. And that was just never going to happen. The role of whatever the second back is in Detroit, while Jahmyr Gibbs is here, will be to spell him, not to join him. That's what we learned last year. And the other thing we learned last year was that Gibbs is too good to be splitting carries 50-50 or even 60-40. He's too talented. He has too much speed, too much vision, too much skill to be limiting him to half the carries or, 6/10 of the carries. And I understand what Dave Montgomery was saying, and look, I think when it came to what he said on Twitter last weekend, well, is that what Monty said? What if Monty wants to stay? I think sometimes these guys just get annoyed that other people are talking about them and may or may not be accurate in what they say. Do I think David wanted to stay? No, I don't. Do I think in theory he would have liked to have stayed? Yes, I do. He fit in really well with Detroit. He and Gibbs got along really well. And when they were using both of them optimally, they were crushing it. When the offensive line was stronger, they were crushing it. But the Lions are in the middle of an offensive line reset. They need munitions, which means they need money and space. And I really do think if you're David Montgomery, you want the rock. You don't want to be the guy carrying the ball 20 times or 20% of the time. Who wants that? Even 30% of the time. He's going to be 29 years old next season. He doesn't got much time left as far as peak productivity goes. The average lifespan for a running back, he's already past that. Right? I think the average is 4 years. And look, if you're Houston, you think to yourself, man, last year running the ball wise, that didn't go too well. Their offensive line was also not very good. Well, I shouldn't say also. The Lions' offensive line was okay last year. It wasn't good. It was okay. The Houston Texans offensive line last year, not very good at all. They didn't have Joe Mixon. Nick Chubb gets hurt. Mixon gets hurt. Chubb's there. They have another rookie they mix in. The running game was not there for the Houston Texans. And Juice Scruggs had not made his way back into the lineup. He started 20 games, I think, the first 2 seasons, and then not at all last year. Couldn't find a spot in the rotation. I know a lot of people are upset. And look, I understand why. David Montgomery was the kind of guy you want on your sideline, in your locker room, in your backfield, whatever. If you live in Grosse Pointe, maybe he's the kind of neighbor you want. Let's be honest with ourselves. Who do the Lions need more? David Montgomery or a versatile offensive lineman plus $3.5 million in extra cap space? We know what the answer is. It's not Montgomery. It's the $3.5 million and an offensive lineman. And the Juice Scruggs trade already made sense. It makes even more sense when the Lions cut Graham Glasgow. Detroit saved an additional $5.6 million on that move. So if you include Montgomery, it's about 9.1 If you include Montgomery, it's about $9.1 million in savings. So what does it all mean, right? To quote Austin Powers, what does it all mean, Basil? I'm assuming the Lions would love it if eventually Tate Ratledge becomes the center. Eventually. Is he ready right now? I don't know. And they might not either. I wonder if they hope that Juice can fill that spot in 2026. Can Juice play center to keep Ratledge where he is for another season? Do the Lions want Scruggs to start? We don't know the answer to that question yet. I'm assuming the answer is yes, at least for the time being. Because again, this kid was a high draft pick, second round. Great player at, I think, Penn State. So this guy can play. I mean, there was high expectation, and maybe those gains have not yet been realized, and maybe they can be here in Detroit. I love me some Hank Fraley. I think he's a great offensive line coach. Let's see what he can do with Juice Scruggs. The Lions aren't going to force anything here, and we'll learn what their plan is, what their thought is, not only through free agency, which starts next week, and then at the draft. What they have in store for Juice will be determined in those two periods, not, of course, notwithstanding how he performs in camp. And look, I was a big Graham Glasgow fan. I don't like seeing anybody go. Well, I shouldn't say I don't like seeing anybody go. I don't like seeing him go. But it was time. I mean, yeah, he was a character. And talk about a guy that took one for the team. He was most comfortable at right guard, but he played left guard too and center. And clearly he wasn't super comfortable at left guard or center. But he's a smart player, cerebral guy. So it kind of worked. But his body was giving out. And the Lions have to get younger on the offensive line. They've got to flip the script. The offensive line has to renew itself. Are the Lions a better team today? No, they're not. They no longer have the best backfield in the league, and they're down an offensive line starter for now. How does that change, like I said, in free agency and in the draft? Obviously, the Lions are going to go heavy here on the offensive line, which I think they should. I think the more you see these moves, the more that becomes obvious. This is where you find out if Brad Holmes is an elite GM. I know the Lions haven't won a Super Bowl, but they've assembled a lot of talent in the last several years. The drafting has been impressive. The free agency's been hit and miss, certainly. There's been some hits, there's been some misses. Building a team once is hard, certainly. I mean, look at the Lions of the last century. A lot of misses. But rebuilding is even more difficult. But if you're savvy in free agency and smart in the draft, you can do it. I mean, I hate to talk about the Patriots because annoying. But look at how many different key players they had, aside from Tom Brady during that 7th Super Bowl run. Or I guess 6. The 7th came in Tampa. Excuse me. If you draft really well, like the Lions have done for the most part, it's hard to keep your guys, no matter if you drafted them or not. Things start to become expensive. Yeah, you want to keep everybody intact, but once those dudes start coming off of rookie deals, the math changes dramatically. So if Brad Holmes is an elite general manager, I think he is, but I don't think we know the answer to that question yet. If you ask me right now, I say yes. But ask me this time next year or mid-season next year. I'll have a much, much more clear answer. No question about it.
Detroit basketball.
Talk Pistons. Tough loss to the Cavs the other night. They gave themselves multiple chances down the stretch to take lead. In fact, I thought they were going to. The way they've played lately, where they found themselves down, I mean, look at the Orlando game, is a great example. They find themselves behind and they scrape and claw and fight their way back. And I mean, and what happened in the Cleveland game? Well, 19 second half points from Tobias Harris helps. But the issue in that game was Cleveland always seemed to have the answer, which at the end was Sam Merrill. I mean, man, that 3-pointer was about a minute left, and I thought, that's it. And it was it. That was it. Jalen Duren continues to become more and more valuable to this Pistons franchise. He's so much fun to watch. And, Detroit has this thing. And, sometimes I think about it. We say, well, Detroit, we like toughness. And do other cities not say they like toughness too? I don't know. I'm from here. I don't know the answer to that. But like, if you're from Dallas or like, I don't know, Philly or Portland, do you not say, well, we don't care how tough you are. We like this. I don't know. People in Detroit would say, we like toughness, as if nobody else does. But we do. And a dude like Jalen Duren is exactly what we like in this town. 24 points, 14 rebounds. He continues to surge in importance for this Pistons team. Cade Cunningham is the heart and the soul of this team, no doubt. He had 14 assists last night, struggled a bit offensively otherwise. But Jalen Duren is becoming, if it was a 1-2, he's slowly becoming a 1B to Cade's 1A. Maybe not quite exactly there yet, but I've been so impressed with the improvement of Jalen Duren if you go from the beginning of this year, the beginning of last year to the beginning of this year, it's been astronomical. And even throughout this season, his improvement has been dramatic. It's great to see. Speaking of things that are great to see, great to have Beef Stew back. The Pistons are far better when they can dominate, or at least have the personnel to be able to dominate inside. And I say that with all due respect to Paul Reed, who, I feel for him. I'm not sure he played in that Cavs game. Everything changes. A guy like him, you have to be so flexible in what you expect and what you're going to do. Last night, or if you're listening after, right, on Tuesday night, Paul Reed's job was moral support in a long sleeve shirt. When Beef Stew was out, his job was to dominate offensively under the glass and defensively. And he did that. He did both of those things. And I'm sure he doesn't like sitting on the bench. But I love a guy that can walk right in and get hot immediately and then go back to the bench without saying a word. I love it. There was some talk before the game, right? Like somebody in the Cavs locker room said like the Pistons weren't on their level. I use air quotes there. But like, what does that even mean, first of all? And second of all, if you're not going to put your name on it, if you're not going to say, I, Zach Clark, said you're not shit, then shut up. That's why I hate like anonymous GM or coaches or player survey. If you don't have to put your name on it, you can say whatever you want. There's no accountability at all. Put your name on it, or keep your mouth shut. Put your name on it, or keep your mouth shut. Just a little note there. The Pistons have played in a brutal stretch as of late. If you include the game they'll play on Thursday against San Antonio, they have played 6 straight playoff opponents or playoff caliber or playoff contending teams, right? Everybody they've played in the last 6 games is either in the playoffs right now or would be in the play-in to make the playoffs. Right? I mean, they had that game against the Bulls, and then they went 3-2 against those playoff contenders. And remember, these were without Beef Stew. They were able to do pretty well without Beef Stew. How much better would they have done? I don't know. We're not going to play that game. But one thing we do know, the Pistons have proven to be resilient. There's no question about it. The one in San Antonio coming up is a big one. They're all big if you want to be the top team in the East. And if the Pistons not only want to be the top team in the East, But all we hear about is how good the West is. The West this, the West that, the West this, the West that. Well, the Pistons aren't in the West. They only have to play in the East. Forget all that. Take care of business against the West now, and certainly if you get a chance in June. Do I think the Pistons are the best team in the NBA? No, I don't. Does that mean I think that they can't win a championship? Absolutely not. I think they're the toughest team in the NBA. Their resiliency has been excellent. This team has every opportunity to win a championship. That's it. Flat out. Talk a little baseball. I watched the Tigers on, was it ESPN the other day? It was nice. Baseball back a little bit. But starting on Friday, we've got the World Baseball Classic. How do we feel? How do we feel about the World Baseball Classic? I like it because it's competitive baseball. I like competitive baseball. I want competitive baseball. But, if you compare it to, I don't know, we just watched the Olympics, right, with the hockey tournament, or basketball in the Olympics, or, even the Four Nations tournament in hockey last year. That ended up being so cool. I thought that was going to be stupid, and it was awesome. It was awesome. The WBC has barriers to success, right? There's no good time to do this because baseball is such a long season. They play so many games. This is probably the best time to do it. When guys are ready, they're getting ready, but they're not actually playing games that count yet. You couldn't do this in January or December. You certainly couldn't do it in July unless you're willing to take a full break. This WBC, it's not worth taking a break. If you look at the NHL and the Olympics, absolutely worth taking a break. Super awesome. But the WBC is not there. And it's, it presents problems. What's the big story for Venezuela and Puerto Rico? If you're keeping score at home, the big story is insurance. That's why that's why Puerto Rico's without Correa and Barrios, while Venezuela is down Altuve and Rojas. It's all because of insurance. Their contracts were too large to be covered to play in this tournament. And Javi can't play for Puerto Rico because he failed a drug test the last time this tournament happened, which I think is hilarious. So there's a decent amount of guys not playing. And for the United States, they'll be limited. We'll get to that in a minute. The United States roster is ridiculous. But it's somewhat temporary. And look, it's not all bad. If you look at the Dominican Republic, Juan Soto, Julio Rodriguez, Vladdy Jr., the USA is going to go back to back, I believe, with Skeens and Skubal. If you're keeping track at home, that's the last two Cy Young Award winners, both of them from last season. Right. You think about baseball powers. It's basically the Americas and Japan and Korea, right? That's basically it. You don't see a ton of stars unless we talk about the way that countries like France and England use their former territories to claim players. That's a different story. So the United States is going to face, in pool play, Brazil, Great Britain, Mexico, and Italy. And it's Dante Bichette is on the Brazilian squad. I guess his mother is of Brazilian descent. But his brother, Bo Bichette, who plays for the Mets, he was blocked by said Mets from playing. See? This is always kind of messy, this World Baseball Classic. And the Brits get the Bahamian effect, right? They have Jazz Chisholm, Trace Thompson. I didn't know that Trace and... I know the Thompsons were English. I didn't know that. Trace and Clay. I'm learning. And this will probably get me in trouble, at least on Staten Island. But Italy's team feels like a bunch of dudes from Staten Island. Aaron Nola, Michael Lorenzen, Vinny Pasquantino. I will say, though, Italy has Dante Nori, who is from Northville. Right? How does that work? Well, I can explain that one kind of. His father was an assistant coach for Dwayne Casey when he was coaching the Pistons. In fact, before that with Toronto, and they moved here. He went to high school in Northville, and bam, Italian. I mean, Mexico is always going to be a challenge. No Isaac Paredes, but they still have a Rosarena, Jaron Duran, Alejandro Kirk, the Urias brothers, just to name a few, right? When it comes to the Americans, 22 of the 30 guys on the roster that make up Team USA's lineup have been all-stars. They have 40% of the whole tournament's all-stars. One team. 4 MVPs, 6 Cy Young Awards, gold and platinum gloves everywhere. If Team USA doesn't win this whole thing, it'll be a massive letdown. Massive letdown. Except, you think to yourself, well, Zach, they'll run through pool play. I mean, you get Tarek Skubal facing the Brits. Yeah, but then you don't get him again. I'm okay with this. Not a complaint. But again, this is the problem with the World Baseball Classic. We cannot have Tarek Skubal getting hurt. In fact, for Major League Baseball's sake, none of these guys can get hurt. I mean, I only care about the Tigers, but if you're Major League Baseball in general, nobody gets hurt. That's all you care about in this tournament. Nobody gets hurt. So what do you do? How do you nudge the scale in your favor to make sure that doesn't happen? Well, for a guy like Tarek Skubal, he's going to pitch one time 55 hurls max. That's it. So he'll play on Saturday against Great Britain, and then after pool play, he's gone. Which, again, is a bummer. Like, who doesn't want to see Skubal against Japan? That was 2 years ago. That was amazing. But we're not going to get that. The logistics of this tournament make it really tough. And I think it's going to be the thing ultimately that holds it back. I think the other thing is that especially basketball in my lifetime has become insanely global. It wasn't always just the United States, but since the Dream Team in 92, things have changed so much in the global game of basketball. I think that's true in hockey as well, but not to the extent that it is in basketball, and certainly not in baseball. It's hard to play baseball in certain places, and I think the other thing we think about or don't think about is soccer, right? There's a whole other sport across the globe that most people are already playing, and it's not baseball. Will I watch the WBC? Yeah, probably. I mean, there's a lot of college basketball on right now. I mean, the tournament starts next week. The conference tournaments do. We're starting to get on the stretch hockey and NBA wise. I don't know, maybe. I'll watch on Saturday. I'll watch Skubal pitch. But like in my, it's like, oh, WBC. I mean, I woke up early for the hockey. I was all over that. I would have woken up at 5 a.m. to watch that hockey game against Canada. Would I wake up at 5 a.m. to watch the United States play Japan in the final of the WBC? I don't think so. But good news is the WBC is happening in Houston, I believe, or excuse me, in the southeastern United States. The Americans will start in Houston. I think the finals are in Miami. So it's, somewhat proximal to spring training, which not that big of a surprise, right? I do want to talk about Chauncey Billups here for a second. I mean, he's one of my favorite guys.
Detroit basketball.
I didn't want to talk about this during the Pistons, though, because these two things are non sequitur. I mean, Chauncey is a hero here in Detroit. There's no question about that. His time with the going to work Pistons will forever be, carved into my heart. 2004 Finals MVP, Mr. Big Shot himself, big smile, and seemingly, a really good guy. Now, when I say seemingly, that's not fair one way or the other because I don't know him at all. He could be a great guy. He could be terrible. We don't know. We only make assumptions based on these little things we get to see. But it seemed that Chauncey was an up-and-up dude. Then in October, he was arrested. You think to yourself, what? Accused of wire fraud and money laundering in connection with rigged poker games run by the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese families, right? The mob. Now, the feds say, with the little pun they have here, that Chauncey was the face card, right? Like, he wasn't setting up these games. He wasn't the mastermind. He wasn't in the mob, but he was the lure. Oh, yeah, you could play poker with Chauncey. And the games are rigged, right? That's the allegation. That not that he was the ringleader, but that he was helping the mob lure people with a lot of money to rigged poker games so that they could be fleeced. The real shocker, though, because that wasn't it. That was part of it. The real shocker, though, was that he gave somebody information in the state of Oregon, allegedly, that the Blazers were going to tank. And that person in the state of Oregon cashed in on a huge $100,000 bet, knowing that the Blazers weren't, going for it. That's a lot. I mean, rigged poker games are one thing, and you can debate how much he knew and whatever. But if he's just the face card, not good. But man, if you're spilling gambling secrets, that's just, I don't know if it's worth, like, first of all, it's illegal. That, but the whole Pete Rose thing, I don't know. Gambling was already kind of murky to me. Like when I was a kid, like I'm not sure why Pete Rose wasn't in as a child. I didn't quite get that. And now with gambling being so damn prolific, it seems hypocritical to punish guys for gambling. But if he's insider trading, not great. And rigged poker games are illegal too. Here's my thing. And to be clear, I don't have any money. Right? Like I can't fathom any of these things I'm about to say. So my opinion means nothing. Right? Nothing. It's not clear how much money Chauncey made in all this. I believe the poker ring netted less than $10 million total. That's a lot of money. When I say less than $10 million total, when I say only, it's a lot of money, right? For the mob, probably an okay day at the office. But, like, it's not clear how much Chauncey Billups made in all of this. But what is clear, what is crystal clear, is that he made $130 million coaching and playing in the NBA. That does not include like Adidas contracts or when he was working at ESPN broadcasting games. There's probably a bunch of money in those pockets because of those things. None of this makes any sense. Why did he do this? And I'm not like, Chauncey, why would you do this? I'm like, literally, like, why did you do this? Like, can you tell me why you? Maybe he didn't. Maybe the explanation is he didn't do it. And that's that. The reason we're confused is because this isn't him. In fact, Richard Hamilton, I think it was, did he tell USA Today, I believe, that, this isn't Chauncey. This isn't him. That, we're standing by him. We support him. And I think that's how most of us feel. That's how I feel. But what is it? Did he get into some gambling debt? That's the writing theory right now. And it would make sense, right? All of a sudden, you have all this money in your pocket. And I mean, when you're gambling, I don't gamble a ton, but enough to know that it can go quickly, one way or the other. Usually the other, not the good way. Was it just greed? I mean, I think we shouldn't rule that out. If he is, again, if he's done the things he's accused of doing, is it just greed? You think to yourself, I got all this money here. Like, what if I had more of it? And it's easy money. If he's in on all this, it's easy money. If he knows the game is rigged, who cares? You just got to show up. Schmooze with rich people in some fancy Manhattan penthouse, eat well, drink, and walk home with your little cut. I'll do that. I mean, do I want to get in bed with the mob? And again, the mob, not the mob, the mob, Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese. I mean, these are the guys that every gangster movie is based off of. All of them. So now, the reason I bring this up now is because there's talk that there's a plea deal to be reached. I mean, Chauncey's facing like 20 years in prison. Is that going to happen? I doubt it. He doesn't seem like the one they want. He's the face card for the prosecution too. You know, they say, well, you know, Chauncey's the face card for the mob and these poker games. Well, he's the face card for the FBI too, because everybody knows who he is. He's out on $5 million bail, and there's talk about a plea deal. They were in court today. Nothing came out of it. I think they're set to appear in court again in May. And the rumor was, I think there's 30 people charged, and about 10 of them, I think the number was 12, had been offered a plea deal, but it wasn't clear which 12, if it was Chauncey or not. We don't know. But I mean, now you have to assume, like, I mean, his career's over, right? What does he do from here? Technically, he's still with the Blazers. He's on an unpaid leave of absence. They haven't fired him. Can you see a world where he goes back to coaching the Blazers or anybody else? Can he become an assistant? The rigged poker games, again, are one thing. It's going to come down to what really happened with the information. Did he tell somebody to bet on the under or whatever it was when it comes to the Blazers win-loss total? That's going to be the one. It'll be hard to put him on a bench if the answer to that question is yes, he did that. Could he become, you know, you make a lot of money being like a private coach. Could he do that? Yeah, but also if this wasn't like a big debt thing, he could just probably hang out. Again, he made probably close to $200 million in his career. We know for sure 130 from playing and coaching, aside from ESPN and endorsements. So I hope this all blows over, and at some point Chauncey goes back to the bench and coaches Portland, and this is all just something that happened and we don't talk about anymore. But it's hard for me to see that happening. Even if he's found not guilty or it all goes away. This is going to be a stain on him that I think is unfortunate. And hopefully it is a stain that he didn't deserve. It's not good either way, but hopefully he didn't earn this. That would be disappointing. I think it's the best way to say it. All right, y'all, we're getting out of here. Hey, quick congratulations to Jason Benetti. He's been named the new voice of NBC Sunday Night Baseball crew, but he's staying with the Tigers, which I think is good news. We are back on Wednesday at 7 o'clock on Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get yours. Available the first thing on Thursday. Ratings and reviews, always super helpful. Even if you think I suck, tell me about it. Maybe you're not wrong. Cheers.